It's Mazzy here. Welcome back to the channel. The best albums, the best new albums of 2025. 15 albums I narrowed down. And these are personal choices of mine. These are 15 rock, pop, Americana albums that I just gravitated to, that I just really, really enjoy. And so this is a subjective, personal list. That's the only way you can do it. I'm not taking from Pitchfork or Mojo or Uncut or the New York Times or any other magazine. These are the records that I've bought this year, new music, and really enjoyed. Now, throughout the month here of December 2025, there's going to be several other best of. There'll be a best of box set, the best reissues of the year. I'm going to do a separate jazz reissue thing, I think, too. We'll see how that unfolds over the next few weeks. People like these. They like to get mad at them. They like to enjoy them. If I turn you on to one record, to me, that's the greatest success of a list like this. And again, it's so subjective. Put your choices in the comments below. I did 15. I'm going to start with number 15. And this is one that's not even nothing special about this record, except this is a performer that I've loved for 50 years. It's someone who ran for governor of Texas. And if he won, maybe we wouldn't be in the shit we're in Texas or the rest of the country years ago. But this is Kinky Friedman. And this is Poet of Motel 6. This is a posthumous record. He was working on these recordings in the last year or two of his life, and the great producer, country musician, Americana musician David Mansfield, who was in the Alpha Band with T-Bone Burnett in the 70s, did a lot of scores for movies and things, put these recordings together, did overdubs of people like Rodney Crowell and Jimmy Dale Gilmore and some other wonderful, beautiful harmonies, added acoustic guitars and accordions and violin, and it's a true country record. You still have some of that wit and wisdom, in a way, of Kinky Friedman. Of course, if you don't know Kinky Friedman, going back to the 1970s, Kinky Friedman and the Texas Jew Boys, when you name your outfit that, you know there's something interesting is going to happen in songwriting. They ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. High on Jesus, top 10 commandments. He had a certain sense of humor, biting sense of humor that I just adored. But he played pure, beautiful country music and clever lyrical content. And this is no different. It's not as overt. This is a song about loss, about love, about dying possibly. But it's not a depressing album. It's really well recorded and wonderfully put together. And I just felt that since this is his last album, at least for now, you know how things go these days, I wanted to include a Kinky Friedman album. Is it anything special or brilliant or breaking new ground? No. But his songwriting is incredible. I mean, he attracted people from Bob Dylan to John Prine to all these great musicians, to Bruce Springsteen. What a great record. Really well done. But anyway, Kinky Friedman, Poet of Motel 6, coming at number 15. Coming at number 14. Now, this is an album. This is a grower. Sometimes, in fact, the best albums you have to build, you have to listen to, and you start getting deeply involved in the music. And this is number 14, The Resurrection Game by Emma Swift. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, in the middle, the first year, she put out an album called Blonde on the Tracks, a cover of Dylan songs. Now, everyone's done Dylan songs, and there's nothing new, but for some reason, that album really connected with me. I want to thank my friend Todd, who turned me on to that album. It's such a beautiful album. She did Multitudes from that last Rough and Rowdy Ways, like right as it came out, it seems that she recorded that. And she took those songs and made them hers. She's got this beautiful voice. I believe she's Australian. She's living in Tennessee with her partner, Robin Hitchcock. But this is a totally different beast. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. That's really different. The first two tracks especially are lush with big orchestration. The orchestra is as loud as everything else. It's really there. But after I listened to it a few times, those hooks of those songs, the melody, and the way her vocals are just kind of floating above the orchestration and sometimes come even with it. They're beautiful hooks. This is a dreamy album. This is an album that builds on you. I'm thinking of late 60s Lulu and Dusty Springfield. Not so much the soul of a Dusty Springfield, but the lush, that British pop thing, even though she's from down under there, that British pop thing I think she has. And she's got this gorgeous, gorgeous voice. And these songs just are magnificent and all written by her, and great arrangements. Nothing and Forever, The Resurrection Game, No Happy Endings, Going Where the Lonely Go, Beautiful Ruins. Catholic Girls Are Easy opens up side 2. Beautiful package, beautifully pressed records, well produced. Lush is the word here. There's some Baroque pop things too. It's not all big orchestration, but the arrangements are just really chilling. But this is a record you have to stick with. You have to pay attention to. You don't put this on in the background and go do something and just kind of, let it soak in. You want to listen to it. And this is one of those albums I wasn't quite sure when I first heard it, because it was so different than Blonde on the Tracks. Of course, covering Dylan songs. I mean, that anytime you do covers, there's a certain familiarity we all have with the songs. So whoever's doing it, you either like that artist, or maybe you just think, why bother doing it if you're going to do it just like the artist? She turned those Dylan songs inside out and made them just on a different scale of things at the time. And I think this record is like that too. Lyrical content in here. It has all the details of how the record was pressed, where it was pressed, who cut it and everything. Just a wonderful package. Emma Swift, The Resurrection Game, coming in number 14 on my list. It's something you want to check out. And streaming, it's great to stream these things, but I tell you, the vinyl is so much better than listening to this on any streaming service. There's something in a vinyl record, the dynamics of it, that adds something else, and that's a beautifully recorded and beautifully cut record. Coming in at number 13 now. I have a group of friends that have been turning me on to this guy for forever, it seems like, but the last 5 years at least. And this is Foxes in the Snow, Jason Isbell's solo acoustic personal album they put out this year. I have his last 2 albums. What is it, Southwest, whatever it's called, Southwestern. It came out 10 years ago. That's the one that everyone thinks is so brilliant, and it's this iconic thing. He went through, heavy alcohol use and sobriety. He was in the drive-by truckers for a while who just regrouped. Of course, him and his tempestuous, at the end at least, marriage to Amanda Shires is well known, and the major breakup in the last couple years. And this is one of those records. It's a breakup album, but it's not only about the end of that marriage, but it's about a new relationship and a new love. And so it goes from that, I hate to say darkness, because any relationship to me is good. It has some good things, but to this new thing, and it made him, inspired to do an album like this. I think this is his best album from my point of view. It's not as produced as the other ones. It's him and an acoustic guitar, and it sounds incredible. The songs are succinct. They're present. They're beautiful. His voice is great. The guitar sound on this is stunning. And I just think it's a wonderful album. I don't need to show color vinyl. This is not about the vinyl. This is about the music. And this surprised me. And this is a record I kept putting on again over and over and over again. So for me, this is the best Jason Isbell record. I'm sure for Isbell freaks, they still go back 10 years. But there's something about this that just really kind of hooked me. And the songs are personal and, again, uplifting, too, at the same time. So Jason Isbell coming in at number 13. There's a certain sound of acoustic music that really I'm attracted to. Of course, I like experimental stuff, too. But this is a year with all the fucking shit going on in the world. This is some music that really kind of hits you in the heart. And what's great about it is it's not political, most of it, but we want something right now to kind of relieve the tension of what's happening everywhere. And this is an interesting album. This is The Purple Bird by Bonnie Prince Billy. I have a lot of his records, but this is a beautiful country, folksy, dreamy folk record by Bonnie Prince Billy. And it does stand out amongst all his records. He's one of those artists that puts out a lot of records. And Will Oldham, his real name, and he's an actor as well. He has an acting. There's something about this record that amps it up a little bit. I don't mean like loudness or in-your-face production, but it's, to me, he's this country folk artist who really didn't want to dive into the whole country world, and he does it here, and he does it really, really well. He obviously comes from this all-kilter side of the folk world, or the dreamy folk world, or the moody thing. Such a lovely record. So this, again, is The Purple Bird, Bonnie Prince Billy, comes at number 12 on my list. Coming in number 11, a record that was a Record Store Day release last April, I believe. Finally, it's come out so you can buy it. You know, Record Store Day is not always limited to Record Store Day. I don't really care. If it's the music, it doesn't matter if they put out more editions. And they finally put it out on compact disc too. But this is Marty Stuart and his Fabulous Superlatives. And this is Space Junk. This is so good. This is an instrumental album. And this is surf, psychedelic, twangy. Think Ventures. Think Ry Cooder sometimes with his instrumental work. Think of that kind of early surf, early 60s kind of thing happening. But this is, you know, they kick in high gear on this. He's got one of the greatest bands on here. And I've seen him several times on here. Marty Stuart, of course, comes from the bluegrass world, the crossover bluegrass country world, but he's had this band for a number of years now. They merged into that cosmic cowboy psychedelic stuff. They backed Chris Hillman and Roger McGuinn on the 50th anniversary of Sweetheart of the Rodeo Tour, a show that I deeply missed, and I do have the live record that was a result. If you know the Byrds country music, if you know the Byrds country psychedelic stuff, it's like that. But then this is not a vocal album. This is an instrumental album, and it is so good. Space Junk, cosmic psychedelic, twangy, reverb-drenched guitar stuff. What a great band. And Marty Stuart, you can get this now. It's not just Record Store Day. And this is number 11 on my list. Number 10. The Sparks, Mad. Not the Sparks, Sparks. No, the Sparks, Mad. I go back to Come On In My House in the early Half Nelson and that stuff. I saw them in the 70s a couple of times. You know, there was that period of time, you know, no one in the U.S. couldn't catch on to this. So they were bigger in the UK. In fact, they moved to the UK, and I think people thought, like the Beatles going back to Liverpool from Hamburg, thinking they were a German band. Well, Sparks, art rock, electronic rock. They merged into so many different territories, and they really have had a resurgence in the last 5 years. If you ever saw that wonderful Edgar Wright documentary, The Sparks Brothers, even if you know nothing about this band, watch that documentary, because it's one of the greatest music docs of all time. It's really brilliant and interestingly done. But this is more the art rock thing with electronics, their witty songwriting, even the song called Jan Sport Backpack. There's dance music, there's art music, there's, you know, I wouldn't call it psychedelic, but there are riffs in here that are just amazing hooks. Go see them live if you can, because they're such a great band. I mean, come on. The Mail Brothers, Sparks, Mad. This hit number 2 in the UK, not in America, unfortunately, but in the UK, it was their biggest hit, biggest chart action. I think the one Come On In My House hit number 4 back in the 1970s, 1974. But this is a record hit number 2 in the UK. So go see them if you can. This is a wonderful record. It's a fun, uplifting record, a joyous record, and just some fun stuff. I-405 rules. If you're in LA, you know what that means. Love it. Coming at number 9. This is a dark, beautiful record. And this probably was a good thing for the artist. Alan Sparhawk with Trampled by Turtles. This record, Alan comes from his band Low. His wife, Mimi Parker, died of cancer just a couple of years before this. And Trampled by Turtles is this kind of new bluegrass band out of Minnesota. And they collaborated on this, and it's the first thing he really kind of jumped into after the loss of his wife. And they were partners in Low. They played music, wrote great music, and there's a darkness and a moodness to their music. And this is like that, but it has a beauty to it that to me is uplifting. I've always been a fan of when music's dark, when it's moody, like the Leonard Cohen stuff or the last David Bowie, it kind of makes me feel good. Nick Cave would be another person like that. His records can be just seemingly dark, but somehow uplifting. And I think this is like that record, but even more so. The acoustic instruments, obviously, interesting combination of that from the newgrass sound here. You know, the newgrass sound of this band backing up Alan Sparhawk is a really wonderful, seemingly unusual combination. But again, a record I put on all the time, you know, a rebirth record for him. It gets into halfway through the record, the song Screaming Song. That is a chilling, intense song that starts out kind of at a low key and builds up in this kind of psychedelic, folky, psychedelic grass way. And it's just a brilliant piece of music. And it's like builds up just before the intermission. Obviously on a vinyl version, the intermission happens, you flip the record over, and then it continues on a nice keel. But what a wonderful record. Alan Sparhawk with Trampled by Turtles, a fabulous record. And this is coming in at number 9. Coming in number 8, Mavis Staples, Sad and Beautiful World. One of the greatest, the queen of gospel soul music, one of the greatest soul singers, you know, still doing it and doing it beautifully. Over the last dozen years or so, she's done a series of albums by different producers like Ben Harper and Jeff Tweedy and Ry Cooder, and takes these brilliant songs of other artists and makes them hers. And there's a consistency in each album to the faithfulness of the songs, yet she turns them a little inside out. She opens up here with Chicago. Of course, staple singers were from Chicago, as was Jeff Tweedy, who produced that album of hers years ago. This was produced by Brad Cook. But that song, Chicago, written by Tom Waits and his wife, Kathleen Brennan. Beautiful version of that. Sad and Beautiful World, Mark Linkous from Sparkle Horse. Another great indie songs. Again, these songs, for those who follow independent music and alt country, Americana, will know a lot of these songs and they'll be somewhat familiar to you. But she doesn't just take the songs and Xerox them. She brings a certain gospel soulness to her. Rock, gospel, soul music, beautifully presented. And there's something about her records that just really tug at you. And there's a political side and social politics in all her music. Sometimes it's more overt than others, sometimes not so much. Just a wonderful, personal, social album, a great album for our times. Mavis Staples, Sad and Beautiful World. Coming in at number 7, Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band, and this is New Threats from the Soul. This is an unusual album. This album seems whacked crazy. Again, it has a country feel, a folky country roots thing, what we call Americana. That's the old catch-all for anything like this. But this is a bizarre album. Think of a little bit of maybe Kinky Friedman, Loudon Wainwright III, Jim White. Jim White was someone I thought of right when I first heard this guy. Now, Jim White had a series of records on Loaka Bop that were kind of country, hip-hop mix. He doesn't have the hip-hop thing here, but he's got that quirky sound. Sometimes his voice is kind of breaks. Yeah, breaks a little bit like that. The lyrics are hysterical, but not trying to be overtly, it's not a comedy album by any stretch of the imagination. But this band is so friggin' cool. This is over double LP because it's a long album. I don't know much about him prior to this album, and I heard about this album, I think it came out in the summertime or late, maybe September. And I just think it's such a cool record. Mutilation Springs, Monte Carlo, No Limits. There's some long songs. The title song goes up, I think it's 9 minutes. And it is a little like a Dylan thing going on. Again, these don't sound anything like those artists that I described. But you could put him in that category. You can think John Hartford as well. Again, not sounding like those artists, but the attitude and the wackiness of it. This record shouldn't be any good based on the description I said. It should be kind of like, okay, some guy's getting his guitar, writing some of these quirky, weird-ass songs, putting it together. But for some reason, this is a perfect record if you can enjoy that and enjoy those, like, whacked out, just crazy, angular, lyrical content on here. And the music's beautiful. I think he lives in Indiana now. I don't remember where he's originally from. Now, this album could have been higher on my list. Of course, it is number 7, so that's pretty damn good for the entire year of music. But in a certain parallel universe, this could have been my number 1 album of the year. It is so twisted. But this is an album, I don't know if I would recommend it to everyone. You have to let things go. Look at this. It's double album. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Black, beautiful black. Something I keep coming back. This album makes me smile. And I keep coming back to it like all these albums. Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band. It's the only album I'm going to laugh at and still enjoy it. Love it. Look at that cover art, too. How beautiful is that? Now coming at number 6, Geckos. I've been shouting about this album from the rafters in several videos over the last couple months. And this is a record that I just saw because of the cover. And I hadn't read anything about it, hadn't heard anything about it. I didn't stream it first. I just thought that was a cool record. One of my local shops had it in stock, and I grabbed it, and I got it home, and I couldn't stop playing it. I'm still playing it. This is probably one of the most played records just in the last, 6 weeks or however long it's been since I first picked it up. Now, this is M. Ward, Howie Gelb from Giant Sand, and Mikowski. It's got this southwestern feel. I've described it before. It's got, a little bit of, of course, Giant Sand, Calexico, that Tejana, Mexicali, half Spanish, little Ry Cooder soundtrack, Paris, Texas type vibe to it. Cool guitars, reverb, deep, dark vocals, sexy album. Just a lovely, lovely album. I've talked more about it, so I don't think I can say anything more about it, but Geckos, kind of a side project for all of them, coming together, everything from Mikowski doing his soundtracks and his other projects to M. Ward, of course, his solo career, and Howie Gelb, too. But the album opens up with a track called Wedding Waltz, and it kind of sets the tone. And apparently the three of them kind of met or got together and started playing music at a wedding reception. So Geckos, again, this is coming in at number 6 for 2025, Mazzy's list here. Coming in at number 5. Now, interesting about this year, 2 of the albums on my top 15 list, the best of new music, are 3 record sets. Now, you have to invest yourself in an album that spans over 3 records. On the other hand, just think of it like 3 separate records by an artist, and you don't have to listen to it all at once. Let it unfold. Enjoy it as it goes along. And this is David Lowery, Fathers, Sons, and Brothers. 3 records that this is his autobiography. Now, David Lowery was the original member of Camper Van Beethoven, and then, of course, Cracker. He also is a professor of business music, and he still tours with Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker, and sometimes they'll do collaborations, basically a both on the same bill. One will open up for the other. I've seen them many times over the years, going back to Camper Van Beethoven, Take the Skinheads Bowling and all that. And that's kind of that has become his signature song. Although with Cracker, I quite like Big Dipper. It's like, to me, that's one of those perfect songs. I can't hear it enough, Big Dipper. But this is pretty much, you could call this a pandemic record where he worked on it during that time. And, people have been asking him to write an autobiography. In lieu of that, he did it in song. And it is again, Americana folk type of record, acoustic guitar as the bass, but there's some other artists that join in on certain instruments and some harmonies here and there. But it really goes over his entire career, from a young boy, Plaza de Toro, where he's taken to the bullfights when he was young in Mexico, and Super Bloom, Disneyland Jail. Personal songs, a little wry sense of humor. Think Take the Skinheads Bowling. He even, recounts the story of that song becoming famous. But there's a personal journey here, obviously, with failed relationships and the joy of going through and having his equipment storage locker broken into and things stolen and strewn about. There's something about this that every time I listen to this record, when I have the time, I want to listen to it all straight through. Now, you could stream this and enjoy it on a road trip. It's like a books on tape with music. Think of it that way. But the songs are great. There's some great hooks in it, great arrangements, and I love that mid-California vocal he has, that voice he has. I keep thinking of California Surf, but it's really not that. We did do a conversation when this album came out, and I love chatting with him about it. Seek that out on my channel here. David Lowery, it's just, this is a record that should have more ears on it, I think. And I don't think it's gotten its due, really. It's just a wonderful record. There's a wonderful booklet inside. Obviously lovely photographs. Any man that could sport a hat like that is high on my list usually. David Lowery, Fathers, Sons, and Brothers. It's a personal journey, and it is joyous too. But it takes you along. If you let yourself go into it, this is a wonderful exploration of a person's life through their songs. And I don't think it's quite ever been done quite like that. We have autobiographical albums, of course. Everything from Springsteen, other members have done it. John Lennon, in a way, too. I just think that really does it in a really succinct way, but in a beautiful Americana journey on it. Coming number 4 is Rosalia Lux. It's Rosalia, the album's called Lux. Spanish record mostly, but not totally. This is very different than all the other records I've shown. This is a big record. This is very over-the-top lush. This is like an operatic, expansive record. The arrangements with the London Symphony Orchestra are astounding. Her vocals, her Spanish vocals, are incredible, along with the orchestration on here and the arrangements. I mean, you have a mix of things. Björk is on one track, and it's like an aria, like an operetta. I kept thinking a little bit of the soundtrack of the score to Evita, the Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice video. Not necessarily Madonna, but just that kind of sound and the arrangements. And sometimes you get this Spanish feel in the music, of course. But sometimes she'll sing a song and it'll go from her singing in Spanish to singing in Japanese, and you don't even notice the difference. And you don't have to understand what she's singing about. Sure, you can follow the lyrics and you can try to, get the feel for it. But this is a majestic record. This is an unusual record. Again, this is one of those records that could have been my number 1 record, but you have to, like an opera, you have to kind of settle yourself in and just let it go. I guess it's a record you could put on and roam around your house and just enjoy the magnificent expanse of it, because there's so much going on here. I'm in awe of an artist like her at a young age, putting this together with her producer and her team, working with an orchestra, I guess she sang maybe live with the orchestra. I don't even know how that came about. The London Symphony Orchestra. This is, I keep saying, majestic and incredible, and it's astounding. This is one of those art pieces that I think over the years is going to grow. Now, this has been a popular album. It kind of surprises me because it's not a typical pop album. There's always, young ingenue pop stars now that are all over the charts. But this is a record that is actually selling, and it's gotten a lot of rave reviews, and I've read those reviews. I mean, the booklet on here goes through all these lyrics and details, and look at this. I need to show you this. It's like, again, like origami poster-like thing. Beautiful photographs of her and all the credits and all the lyrics. And so I haven't even sat down and followed these lyrics along and the details along. First of all, I don't know if I can read all that, but because it almost doesn't matter. It's the feel you get, the vibe on that. I've been to the San Francisco Opera several times. We used to do photo shoots for the opera, for the production, and we would get, free tickets to it. And when they go to an Italian opera or a German opera, you don't have to know what they're singing. You don't have to know the translation. I mean, of course, in opera, at an opera, you see what's happening on the stage. But this is like that. This is a big album. This is a massive production of an album. I'm not familiar with her other work. I don't know how much she puts in, but I tell you, just the awe of this record in terms of the artistic accomplishment, I think is pretty incredible. So Rosalia, the album is Lux, and this is number 4 on my best records of 2025 list. Coming in at number 3, the other 3 record set. Jeff Tweedy, Twilight Override. Record 1, record 2, record 3. Again, a massive journey. 30 songs. You know what other album had 30 songs? The Beatles' White Album. The Beatles' self-titled album, 30 songs. There is a feel that he was very influenced by the Beatles' White Album. There's a lot of stuff on here. It's a small band. It's his sons and a guitar player, and there's, I think, a couple of vocalists that do some harmonies with them. But again, it's an Americana record. I think this is some of the best Tweedy songs he's done in quite a long time. I am a Wilco fan, and I pretty much dive into all the Wilco stuff. But there's something about this, and there's a little bit of a sense of humor. I don't think Jeff Tweedy is a funny guy in terms of his songwriting, but he has these twists on lyrics and things that I just really dig, and I think it works well here. There's a song on here called Lou Reed Was My Babysitter, and it does have that Lou Reed vibe on it. There's a certain humor in that song, and that's, to me, few and far between of Jeff Tweedy in here. But also, when I mentioned the Beatles' White Album, there's a song on side 6 called Cry, Baby Cry. Of course, the Lennon song, same title on the White Album. Not an accident, obviously, naming a song like that in an album like this. Sometimes you have these lush harmonies. There's reflection of like the Beatles and Because and these kind of lush Beatlesque Baroque harmonies on here mixed throughout. So over 3 records, you don't get a lot of samey on here. You could quibble about things, Every time someone puts out a record, whether it's a 2-record set or a 3-record set, there's always, the critics in the peanut gallery will say, oh, this should have been a 1 record. They could have edited it down. The 3-record, it could have been edited down to a 2-record. But I kind of like when an artist really decides, this is where I'm going on this. It's kind of like a director who wanted a director's cut. They don't want to cut things out. Sometimes, you get a brilliant creation like this. Sometimes it's a massive failure. So it is a chance to do that. But I think Jeff Tweedy in this album did a brilliant thing. To me, this is probably his best solo album. And he's obviously, Jeff Tweedy and Wilco are pretty prolific and put out a lot of music over the years. Every year there seems to be something, or every year and a half, not always Wilco direct. but obviously they all have these side projects and soundtrack things, and Nels Cline with his kind of avant jazz stuff going on too. But I just think this is a brilliant album. I mean, it has to be coming in number 3, and his album, even with its expanse, I played a lot because there's so much to dive into. Those of you who know the Beatles' White Album, the brilliance of the Beatles' White Album, there's so much diversity into it. And every time you hear it, a different track comes out at you. You know, I don't think this is as diverse as the Beatles' White Album, obviously, but there is something like that every time you listen to it, a different track really comes out and you're attracted to. At least I am on this. And that's why, again, with all these massive 3 record sets, this and the David Lowery, very different records. But again, you know, the connection is the expanse of these records. This isn't as autobiographical as the David Lowery, but it's still just a magnificent opus, and something that, it's not, again, big album like the Rosalia album, obviously, in terms of production. So it is a little more intimate, but it's brilliant just the same. That is Jeff Tweedy, Twilight, Overdrive, coming in at number 3. Coming at number 2, an album called A Danger to Ourselves by Lucrecia Dalt. This is such a beautiful record, and this is kind of a dark record. This is a Colombia singer from Colombia. She sings about a third of this record in Spanish. This is co-produced by David Sylvian. Now, earlier in the year, I heard this 45 and I ordered through Bandcamp. This was the single that led up to this album. And this is Cosa Rara. This is co-produced as the album is by David Sylvian. Those of you who watch my channel know I'm a huge David Sylvian fan. It's experimental, electronic, moody, dark music. Obviously, he was a member of the band Japan from the UK, 1978, I think they started, and he went through a whole interesting career and really kind of avant-garde electronic experimental stuff. Well, he produces this album. And what's brilliant about this album, the bedrock, the musical backgrounds seem to be like the experimental David Sylvian album. Those electronic beats, guitar, keyboard things that don't always have a melodic background. Although Lucrecia Dalt has done like dance pop music in Spanish, has done some avant-garde experimental soundscapes over the years. This is a blend of those experimental, like David Sylvian soundscapes with some pop hooks. There is melody all over this record, but you got those, the bedrock of this are those experimental pieces that it seemingly sounds like David Sylvian. I think he mixed the album as well. And there's these beautiful, intense, soundscapes. Again, some in Spanish, some in English. I kind of prefer the Spanish stuff. I don't need to know what she's singing. All the lyrical content's pretty interesting. But there's a certain mood to this album that is, to me, is brilliant. Now, I'm going to say this right off. I'm going to put some links below to some of these records on Bandcamp, because some of them you might not see in your store. So look below in the description, and there'll be some links to maybe the things that aren't on major labels. At least you can kind of check them out. If you're interested, maybe go listen to them or buy them. Support these artists, these independent artists. But Dalt, I mean, incredible record. And again, a record I keep going back to because there's a mood to it. I love these dark albums with beautiful melodic hooks over some weird backgrounds. I just love that. I think it's really cool. And now the number 1 album. This is number 1 because I keep going back to it. This is an album that's very commercial, has a ton of hooks. This band has been plastered all over the place. They put their last album out, 2+ years ago, 2.5 years ago. And this band has been constantly touring. And this is a rock and roll band. Despite all the other stuff of pop music and people talking about guitar bands are on the way out, this is a rock and roll band with a dynamic, provocative lead singer. And some people love this band. Some people think, oh, that's just, kitschy pop music. That's just some, this woman up there in her underwear dancing And what is that about? I mean, come on, this is rock and roll. Rock and roll is about Mick Jagger, David Bowie prancing around in costumes on the stage. This is Wet Leg. Maybe an obvious choice, but it's an obvious choice because this is a fucking great record. The hooks on here, the catchiness of these songs, they become really good songwriters. They go in the studio. There's not a lot of overdubs on this. This is a rock band, a tight rock band recording a rock band album, and it's brilliant. I keep going back to this record. If this record comes up when I put it in my car, I blast it. This is a joyous record. Again, as I said earlier, one of the things with all the bullshit that's going on in the world, this record makes you feel good. You smile. There is a kitschiness about some of it. You know, you could compare it to Blondie or Madonna and that type of thing. But it's a fun record. And for, you know, there's people that just love to hate something when they're successful, or love to hate when someone is prancing around in a certain sexual way. But she does it, and they do it brilliantly. They write their own songs. These aren't a group of 100 producers and songwriters, and it's, you know, making a record by committee. This is the real deal. This goes back to power pop. This goes back to post-punk. This goes back to 60s and 70s, just, you know, the Runaways a little bit, but even more so. This is a brilliant album. This album is called Moisturizer. Their second album, the first one's just as good. I would say they're equal. You know, you might like a song, Chaise Lounge on the first one. There's a certain humor to these songs. Like, they seem to be about nothing, but they're brilliant in their creation. They're brilliant in the production. Simple as it may be, there's nothing over the top. There's no excess shit added to this. This is rock and roll. And this is, you know, great rock and roll. Wet Leg, Moisturizer. It's the #1 album for 2025 of new music. And thank you for watching. There'll be more to come. Put your bitching and arguments and justification why something should or shouldn't be included in the comments. And I really appreciate it. And Mazzy loves you. Take care, everyone.